Hey, fellow Stopians, stay cool. It's actually, if you do it, it's kind of meant to be facing down. Wiggle, wiggle, stay cool. Anyway, are non-hacking watches actually better than ones that hack? So I've got my Tudor black base steel here, which I love. It's not a bracelet at the moment. It's meant to be on rubber, I believe, but it's been sitting in the safe for a long time like this. I do need to get this back and wearable because I do love it. It's just a stain. It's discontinued now, but it's just a stain. It's 41mm, so it's a heritage, as they call them, not a Black Bay 58. It's basically just got an aluminium insert in there rather than, sorry, daughter good. It's got a steel insert in there rather than an aluminium insert, which I don't like. So it's just a thin piece of steel. It's not a solid steel bezel. I'm trying to get it to focus. But yeah, I love it. It looks different. It's less. It's going to be scratch. I mean, I scratched it on the first day I wore it, which was really annoying. Yeah, it's not. I mean, it kind of proves the point of why I don't like aluminium bezels. It's scratched, but it doesn't look. You can see the scratch, but it's not. It hasn't changed any colour of anything. Whereas if that was an aluminium black bezel, and you scratched it, you'd see the silver through it, and that would really annoy me. Anyway, Tudor black base steel, discontinued now, but I think it's a lovely. It's one of the few black base that I like because I'm more a Pelagos guy. Right, so just do a quick wrist check. I've got my Casio on, which will become crucial to this video in a moment. I don't know what model number it is. What I like about this is it's quite large. I mean, they always look large in wrist shots, but you know, the vintage Casios normally are just too small for me. But this is a decent size. Like I say, it doesn't look as big on my wrist as it does in the shop, but yeah, it's a decent size. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm being distracted by something just slightly off camera. And it's a bit of an odd shape, but overall, love the colours. Not too expensive, and I'm very, very pleased with it. Anyway, so let's get back to the purpose, the point of the video. So why am I doing so I've quite liked the Vacheron Constantin overseas, and I found out that it doesn't hack. And prior to that, the only watches that I knew that didn't hack were either old vintage ones. And there is a Seiko. There's it's about £100, less than £100 Seiko, that gets compared to a Rolex or a Perpetual quite a lot. But it's too small for me. It's 36mm. But I know that doesn't hack. And I was a little bit kind of, it doesn't hack. Well, a load of rubbish. But then I found out that my Grail watch, this has been degrailed now. But you'll have to watch that video if you want to know why. That also doesn't hack, and that kind of bothered me at the time, and I thought, God, that's a bit rubbish. I looked into it a bit, and it was basically, there's a few things that get said, but basically hacking. I mean, it's quite a violent word, isn't it? Hacking, hack. It's, if you're hacking at a piece of wood, you're not sawing it. You're hacking at it. If you're hacking at your steak, you're not cutting it nicely with a nice steak knife. You're just hacking at it with some blunt knife and pulling it apart. So hacking's not really a word that sounds great being associated with a quality, delicate watch movement. So anyway, but I kind of just accepted it. That wasn't the reason that I degrailed this watch. I accepted it. And then when I did that video, Gavin, one of my loyal viewers, Gavin B, he asked, why doesn't it hack? And I had a couple of explanations for that. One was that, I can't remember I've come up with a couple. One is that to make a watch hack, as this one would, you're kind of putting more parts in just for that. I don't know how many, I don't know exactly what goes on inside the watch to have that, but it's kind of extra parts. And I'm thinking Vacheron Constantin aren't going to want to put those parts in to their lovely movement that they've created. Adding parts would be kind of unnecessary for something that they don't really think that it needs to do. That was one, and apparently, as I say, hacking it is quite a violent, and it I don't know, maybe it damages the movement. So they don't hack, and but then recently I've got to actually consider how you would live with a non-hacking watch versus one that does hack, and I actually now think that I don't know if I'd prefer, but I'd like a non-hacking watch in my collection. I think setting the time to the exact second goes back to when I was a kid with the talking clock, and you put it in set mode and the seconds be flashing, and then you'd be waiting there for the talking clock to say, at the third stroke, and beep, 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 and then you push it and they reset to 0 and you'll be completely accurate. And I think it kind of goes back to that, which was, I used to enjoy doing that. Probably at one point would have had 2 or maybe more Casios, and I'd want to set them all via the speaking clock. Then just setting one via the speaking clock, because I wouldn't have had a mobile phone there or anything, so it would have just been the speaking clock that would have been the reference point for an accurate timekeeping. I don't know how accurate CFAX and all that kind of stuff was, if you know what that is. But yeah, I would have wanted to set each one via the speaking clock, because it was just something, it was a rite of passage. It was just something I enjoyed doing, and I think, a lot of boys with their 10-year-old boys with their Casios enjoyed doing it too. So it's kind of that, and I'm quite obsessive about setting a watch accurately these days, but I've got to thinking that it might actually be better if it doesn't hack. So let me just quickly, or try to go quickly through my reasoning. So when you set a hackable watch, you stop the second hand at 12. You wait for the time signal, however that may be. Normally I use a mobile phone these days normally, and then at that point you push the crown in, and the second hand would, assuming you've wound it a bit at that point, the second hand would then go on its merry way, and the watch would be 100% accurate, roughly. But what would then happen is it would get progressively less accurate, because it would either gain some time or it would lose some time. And then probably what you'd do after a period of time, depending on how much time your particular watch gained or lost, you'd probably reset that after a while, because when it got to sort of minutes, it'd be a bit annoying if your watch was 5 minutes fast or slow. Some people just don't mind that and they just pay attention to it. But I would probably, after a couple of minutes, I'd probably want to get it back to being, pretty much accurate. So you are interacting with the watch regularly, I would suggest. Now, when you have a non-hacking watch, I would say that's a much calmer process. You don't need, you still need the outside time source to kind of know what the time is. But I think what you would do is you need to find out whether your particular watch runs fast or slow. And then there are a couple of ways you can sort of potentially hack a non-hackable watch, but that would just be stressful. Both of them are quite stressful. It involves winding the crown backwards, which just, why would you do that to a super duper movement? I'd feel like I was breaking it. If it's, you wouldn't let it run down, but if it wasn't moving, if it had no power, you could obviously set the time to wherever the second hand was, and then you could start the watch or wind it or something, and then you'd get roughly, within 5 seconds, maybe either way, to 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, you'd get roughly to the point that you wanted, to the accurate point. But let's just assume we're not even going to try that, because that in itself is quite stressful to have to do that every time the watch needs resetting. One of them's impossible, because you're not going to just let the watch wind down. So what you would actually do, I would suggest, is you'd work out, as I say, whether your watch is fast or slow, just by wearing it and just keeping an eye on it. And then you would, the second hand will be going around. you'd set the time, obviously sort the date out or whatever. You'd set the time, and if your watch ran fast, you'd set the minute hand to the minute behind the time that it was. If it ran slow, you'd set the minute hand to the minute in front of the minute that it was. Now, that's going to be up to 30 seconds out, but it's probably more likely to be about, I don't know, it could be 15, 20, it could be 5 or 10. My point is, though, you're setting the watch either behind, up to 30 seconds behind the current time, or up to 30 seconds in front of the current time, depending on whether your watch runs fast or slow. And then what will happen is your watch, when you start wearing it from that point, your watch will actually be getting more and more accurate the more you wear it. Does that make sense? Whereas this one, you've made a real deal to get it, at the bob on at 12 o'clock, which is a little bit stressful. It's not very stressful, but it's less stressful than just not doing that. But this one would be getting more accurate. Bear with me. So then what would happen, it would get to a point where it was actually perfectly accurate. And then it would start to go the other. So let's say it ran slow and you set it a minute behind. Am I saying that right? It would catch up, and then it would start to become. You set a minute in front rather. Then it would work backwards, and it would work backwards to being completely accurate. And then it would start to go out the other way, and you'd start to lose time or gain time if your watch is running fast. Because it's only really going to do one of those two things. It's not really going to do both. I would suggest it's not going to alternate between running fast and slow. They just don't, do they? When you put them on the time graph, they either run fast or slow. And then it would start going the other way. So let's say it was 20 seconds slow. And your watch is running fast. Eventually that would catch up, and then it'd go the other way, and then eventually it'd become 20 seconds too fast. And at that point, you'd simply unscrew the crown. The second hand is not going to stop, and you'd move the minute hand backwards or forwards, depending on which way around your watch is, and then it would go back to being inaccurate in the other way, and that process would start again. Because with this one, when this one goes out of sync, you're basically resetting it to perfect every time, but you're still interacting with them the same. And interestingly, if you do it properly, this one is actually averagely the more accurate, because this one is either always running a bit fast or always running a bit slow. This one is doing both. And averagely, that's bob on. Does that make sense? I'm mad. But yeah, so and it's an easier life because you're not having to have that thing where it has to be at 12 when you set it. You're just monitoring it. And the other thing I'd say on that is that you're kind of you're obviously interacting with both of them, but you're interacting with this one in a more organic way. You're paying attention to whether your watch is fast or slow, and you're not constantly, but every now and then you're monitoring it in the same way you would this one. You're monitoring it and adjusting it, and you're kind of, you're tweaking it. You're just giving it a nudge to be better. And I actually find, I've even thought of that. I only thought of this today, this bit. I actually find that I like the idea of that. It's a bit like I like the idea of a manual wind watch, which is another thing I don't have. Having to interact with the manual wind watch every day. It probably would be every day, wouldn't it? Or every other day, let's say. But having that, that relationship with your watch, that is, I would say, would be kind of special. But I haven't got a manual wind, and I haven't got a non-hacking watch, so I can't really. I suppose you could treat, thinking about it, you could treat a hackable watch in that way. You don't have to reset it every time. You could do exactly the same. Maybe I'll try that. That's my thing. I'm going to try that, see how it feels before I spend 25 grand on a non-hackable. But yeah, I only know two non-hackables. That's this one and that Seiko that I mentioned. But it's too small, and this one's too expensive, and they won't give you one anyway or sell me one. So let me know in the comments below what non-hackable, what good non-hackable watches are there for a 7.5-inch wrist. But yeah, also let me know, am I mad, or does that kind of make sense? Is that actually quite, is that having a watch that doesn't have those extra parts in, You're not having the stress of, the watch isn't having the stress of being hacked, and you're not having the stress of having to set it, at 12 every time. You're literally just working out whether it's a bit fast, bit slow, and moving the minute hand accordingly. You've got to interact with the watch. If it's got a date, then you've got to interact with that X amount of months per year. So yeah, I think they are a good thing now. It's gone from, I think most people just say it doesn't hack, especially when they're expensive. It doesn't hack and it costs all that money. That's ridiculous, blah blah blah. I think there are legitimate reasons for it, and I've certainly become a non-hacking watch convert. But yeah, as I say, let me know. Hope you're having a good day. For now, one wrist, live it.